All right. I said I was going to make a review video, and I'm finally doing it. So, first thing I'll say is everything that I'm showing you, there are going to be multiple ways to do it, whether it's using the CAS calculator, Desmos, doing it by hand. I'm going to just choose a way that I think is very repetitive. I'm probably going to go ahead and show you how to use the calculator, even for questions where you could probably very easily do it without the calculator. Or using Desmos, just because I want you guys to be familiar with just the idea that you can use the calculator always. If it's super easy math, probably still just use the calculator, because the calculator doesn't make mistakes. So I'm gonna do here. This is Blue Book paper test 3. So it's gonna have 27 math questions. The real test again only has 22 for each module. And I'm gonna do one video of me doing module 1, and then I'll do module 2 in a different video. So again, if you guys are saying like, oh, I would have just done it this way, whatever, or you see that there is another way to do it, again, many of these questions have multiple ways to do it. I'm just gonna say a way that I think is repetitive, or maybe works really well for that question, even if it's not the most efficient or not the quickest way. Just because it's a way that I think will work really well. All right, so this first problem. Number 1 says, what is the solution to the given equation? So remember, if they're ever asking for a solution, we're usually going to solve for x, and I should really say we're usually going to solve for the variable, because here we're obviously solving for k. So we're going to pull up the calculator, and we're going to go to menu 3.1, and we're going to type in the equation. So k plus 12 equals 336, comma k, because we have to tell the calculator what letter to solve for. We get k equals 324, so B. I'll also show you guys what it is that I would recommend writing down. So that's another thing that we will maybe see, because I think a lot of times people don't write enough down when doing this stuff because we rely so much on the calculator and on Desmos. All right, number 2, the function f is defined by f of x equals x cubed plus 15. What is the value of f of 2? So remember, with functions, whatever's inside the parentheses is what is replacing x. So here they're basically saying, hey, let's make x equal to 2. So again, I'm going to personally use the calculator. And just wherever I see x, I'm just going to put 2. And I don't have to use the solve function here. So we're going to say 2 cubed plus 15. So 23. That's answer C. All right. Number 3. So it says, Sean rents a tent at a cost of $11 per day, plus a one-time insurance fee of $10. Which equation represents the total cost C in dollars to rent the tent with insurance for D days? So we want to get the total cost C. So we're going to have C equals. And they said it's $11 per day. So anytime they say a phrase that would be a rate, so $11 per day is a rate, that's usually going to be our slope. So just like y equals mx plus b, it's going to be 11 times our variable. The variable they're using is d, or the letter they're using here is d, plus a one-time fee. So the one-time fee is usually our y-intercept, so plus 10. That's answer C. All right, number 4. So anytime we have these sorts of equations, or these sorts of figures where we have two lines that are parallel and a transversal. So reading the question a little more carefully, it says in the figure shown, line M is parallel to line N. There's the parallel lines I was talking about. Was the value of x? How I always just kind of think about this is we just need to memorize any angles here that I'm marking with the same color are all going to be the same. So all those angles that are marked in blue are going to be the 26, and all the angles marked here in red are going to be what they are deciding to call x. And then if I take any two of the different colors, so if I took one blue and one red, so if I said x plus 26, then that should equal 180. Well, they're asking for x, so I just made an equation that has x in it. So now I can pull up my calculator and I can go to menu 3, 1, because I'm solving for a letter in a single equation. So x plus 26 equals 180, comma, x, because I have to tell the calculator what to solve for. Enter, so we get x equals 154. I guess I'll write it down. And so the answer is D. So with these, just remember that all the angles that are marked as the same color are the same. And then if you add one angle of each color, that will always add up to 180. All right, so number 5. John paid a total of $165 for a microscope by making a down payment of $37 plus P monthly payments of $16 each. Which of the following equations represents this situation? So this is actually just like number 3 that you can see to the left, in the sense that they gave us something by saying $16 each. That means $16 each monthly payment. Well, that means that's our slope. So we could say that's 16 times however many monthly payments, which apparently is P. And then we're also paying a one-time down payment of 37. So that's like our y-intercept. And then the total is what this should equal. So that should equal 165. So see as well. All right, number 6. If y equals 5x plus 10, what is the value of y when x equals 8? Well, they're just wanting us to say, hey, wherever x is, just plug in 8. And again, I could do this by hand, but I'm going to go ahead and use the calculator. And here I don't have to use the solve function. I'm just doing regular math. So 5 times 8 plus 10. So 50. All right, number 7. The bar graph shows the distribution of 419 cans collected by 10 different groups for a food drive. How many cans were collected by group 6? So group 6, we just look here at group 6, and we just look over. It's clearly at the nice line for 40 right there. So 40. All right, so then look over here at number 8. Oh, let's get rid of the calculator. Look here at number 8. It says the table gives the distribution of votes for a new school mascot in grade level for 80 students. If one of these students is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting a student whose vote for new mascot was for a lion? So we're picking from all of the students. So how many total students do we have? We had 80 students. We're picking out of all 80 students, and they went and said out of all of the students, what was the probability that their vote was for a lion? So we go to the lion, and we want the total for the lion. It's going to be on top. And this is where we could go to the calculator to do the simplification here. And we're just doing regular control divide. So we're just making a fraction. We're going to write it exactly how it looks because our calculator will simplify. And so we get 1/4. Obviously, could you do that by hand? Yes. Again, I'm going to use the calculator pretty much as much as I possibly can. All right, number 9 here. It says the graph represents the total charge in dollars by an electrician for X hours of work. So here the y-axis is the amount of money, and then the x-axis is the number of hours. So we'll write hours. The electrician charges a one-time fee plus an hourly rate. What is the best interpretation of the slope of the graph? So whenever we're dealing with slope, remember that slope is a rate. So if we're looking at the answers, it has to be a rate. So looking at A, the electrician's hourly rate. So there's rate, so that's looking pretty good. B, the electrician's one-time fee. Nope. One-time fee will be the y-intercept. C, the maximum amount that the electrician charges. Well, a line can go on forever, so there isn't really a maximum amount. And then D, the total amount that the electrician charges. That's just what the y value is at any given time. So again, slope is a rate. A mentions a rate. So that's where we're going with A. All right, number 10. Square X has a side length of 12 centimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. So here's my square X. We'll just say 12. This side will also be 12. The perimeter of square Y is 2 times the perimeter of square X. What is the length in centimeters of one side of square Y? So there are 2 ways to do this. We could go ahead and find the perimeter of square X by just adding up all those sides. So 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12. In the calculator, we can do 4 times 12. Again, just going to use the calculator so we can see that. So we should get here 48. Cool. And then if we double that, 48 times 2. So the perimeter of square y, so this is square x, so the perimeter of square y is going to equal 96. Well, to get that, that's just 4 times the sides for square y. So we can set that equal. And now I can solve that. So I could go menu 3, 1. And 4. I'm just going to go ahead and do 4. Ooh, I don't know what did I select here. So menu, let's try that again. Menu 3, 1. So I'm going to do 4, and I'm even going to use the letter S. 4S equals 96, comma, S. Enter. So we get S equals, SY equals 24. There is another way to do this. I'm actually going to show you the other way because I think for harder questions, this can be really good. So the ratio of the perimeters and the sides of two similar shapes is the same ratio. So since the perimeter of y is equal to 2 times the perimeter of x, that actually also means that the sides for y will equal 2 times the sides for x. If this was area of the square, this would be a different thing, but for perimeter, the factor for the perimeters, so that's what we're multiplying one perimeter by to get the other, is the same for the factor of the sides. So I could say that the side of y is equal to 2 times the side of x, which we know is 12. And so, again, we get the same answer of 24. All right. So number 11. What is the equation of the line that passed through the point 0, 5 and is parallel to the line to the graph of y equals 7x plus 4? Well, when lines are parallel, that means here we have the same slopes. So this line that we had over here was nicely written as y equals mx plus b, and in fact, all the answers here are written for y as y equals mx plus b. So we now can say that the slope is equal to 7 that we care about, and again, it passed through the point 0, 5. Well, I have the opinion that if I'm ever trying to find the equation line, I could use Desmos. So in Desmos, what we can do is if you ever have the slope and a point, you can add a table. You can then type in the point. And then if you have the slope and a point, you have to type in this. So you have to do, oops, let's pull this back up. You have to do y1 tilde m, and we know what m is, so we're going to put 7x1 plus b. And here it tells us that our b is 5, so we can now say that our line is y equals 7x plus 5. You could have also thought of this as we know that this is the x-intercept here. This point is, the y-intercept. We know that's the y-intercept because it's the value of y when x was 0, and that's exactly what our b value is in our y equals mx plus b. But I'm showing you this in Desmos because with other questions, if that point that I have boxed in red was not the y-intercept, then the way that I just showed you will work every time. Okay, so looking at number 12, excuse me. It says in the linear function h of 0 equals 41 and h of 1 equals 40, which equation defines h? So again, they're asking us now for the equation of a linear function. So they're asking for the equation of line. What we have to realize here is by them giving us these functions, they're actually giving us points. So they're saying when x is 0, y is 41. So that's a point. And here they're saying that when x is 1, I wrote that really poorly. When x is 1, y is 40. So we have 2 points. So if we're ever trying to find the equation line and we have 2 points, again, I would use Desmos. So I'm going to add a table, and we'll do this one a little bit differently. So I'm going to put the points, so 0, 41, 1, 40. And when you have 2 points, it's a little bit easier when the lines are written as y equals mx plus b. There's this little symbol. that says add regression. You just click it, and here we are doing linear regression. Easy for me to say. So now I can say that the line is y equals, and Desmos writes it as negative 1x plus 41. And of course, we usually just don't put the 1 in front of the letter. We know it's there, but we don't write it. And so here, that's why we can now say that the answer is A. So again, if I'm trying to find the equation line, if I have 2 points, I can just click that little symbol and it will do the linear regression for me. If we have the slope in a point, we have to type out that y1 tilde slope x1 plus b. Obviously, 2 points makes it much easier for us, so hopefully we get 2 points on the test, but it very much may not be. All right. Number 13. So for number 13 here, there are multiple ways to do it. I'm going to do a way that to me makes a lot of sense and I think can be done fairly consistently because we've seen a couple examples like this. Again, it's maybe won't work for every single one of these questions, but for this exact type of question, which they have done multiple times, it'll work really well. It says the function f of t is equal to 60,000 times 2, all to the power t over 410. Gives the number of bacteria in a population t minutes after an initial observation. How much time in minutes does it take for the number of bacteria in the population to double? So here, the first thing I want us to kind of recognize, for exponentials, the number in the front, so here it's the 60,000, will be the initial. So we initially had 60,000 bacteria. So if we want it to double, we just have to think, well, how much bacteria would that be? So I can pull up my calculator and I can say, okay, let me do 60,000 times 2, and we get 120,000. So I know that when I've reached 120,000, I have now doubled the number of bacteria that I want. So I can now say that that is what this is supposed to be. That's what our outcome should now be. We should get 120,000, and we just need to figure out, well, what should t be to make that happen? So I can actually plug that in, and what's going to happen is I'm going to make an equation that before had 2 unknowns in it. We didn't know f of t, and we didn't know t. So now the only thing we don't know in that equation that I just wrote is t. So I can now solve for t. So I can go to menu, 120,000 equals 60,000 times 2 to the power, going to do control divide, t over 410, comma t. So again, I'm telling the calculator, hey, solve for t for me. And we get t equals 410. Again, there are other ways to do it. This is just one way that I think works consistently. So that's why I'm just going to do it that way for now. All right. Number 14. The function f is defined by f of x equals x minus 6 times x minus 2 times x plus 6 and the xy plane. The graph of y equals g of x is the result of translating the graph of y equals f of x up 4 units, 14, up 4 units. What is the value of g of 0? So they're just telling us that g of x is just going to be f of x, but moved up 4. So when we're translating functions up and down, all we have to do is just add or subtract to the end of that function. So if I'm moving up 4, I'm just going to do plus 4. If I was moving down 4, I would do minus 4. If we were translating horizontally, that'd be a different thing. We do it in the parentheses. So I can now say that g of x is going to be f of x, so it's going to be all of this stuff. X minus 6 times x minus 2 times x plus 6. And then we're going to put plus 4 at the end. And then specifically, they want us to know when x is 0. So I'm just going to plug in 0 for all the x's. So again, I'm just going to pull up the calculator. And I'm just going to say, I'm not doing solve because it's just the right side. I already have g of 0 by itself. So I'm just going to do 0 minus 6, close parentheses, 0 minus 2, 0 plus 6, and then just plus 4 at the end. So I get 76. So g of 0 is equal to 76. Again, multiple ways to do this question. Just one way that I like to do it. All right, number 15. A candle is made of 17 ounces of wax. When the candle is burning, the amount of wax in the candle decreases by 1 ounce every 4 hours. If 6 ounces of wax remain in this candle, for how many hours has it been burning? So this is actually a linear relationship. Again, a lot of times when they mention a rate, here our rate is decreased by 1 ounce every 4 hours. That's our slope. So we are initially starting with 17 ounces, and we are decreasing. So we're going to be taking away 1 ounce every 4 hours. So that's our slope. Times however many hours. So we'll just say times h hours. And that should apparently give us 6 ounces left over. So I just made an equation. So again, I'm going to pull up the calculator, menu 3, 1, and I'm just going to type it in. 17 minus control divide 1 over 4 h equals 6, comma h, because that's the letter I decided to use. And we get h equals 44. All right. Number 16. The given equation relates the numbers j, k, and m, which equation correctly expresses k in terms of m and j. So whenever they want to express a value in terms of other values, the first thing they say in front of the in terms of, so here k, is what you're solving for. So we have an equation and we're going to solve for k. So if I ever have an equation that I'm trying to solve for a letter, I can oftentimes use the calculator. So I'm going to pull it up. We're going to try menu 3-1. These questions, sometimes you can do this, sometimes you can't. These are questions that I will admit you may need to just know how to manipulate expressions by hand. Usually when we're just trying to get one letter by itself, like here, k, so I'm going to do comma k, it will usually work. Now we can see here, we got, when we did the solve function, we now have k equals negative parentheses 14j minus m all over 5. And no answer has exactly that because for whatever reason, our calculator likes to factor out negative signs. So we may have to do a little bit of manipulations here. We can distribute this negative sign into the parentheses to kind of undo this. So this is something you may have to do every once in a while. So it's going to be positive 14j, excuse me, negative 14j. So negative 14j plus m over 5. And then the SAT just likes to put, and normally we like to put the positive numbers first. So that's why here the answer is A. We put the positive m minus 14j because you can switch the order. So this is one where, again, the calculator does most of it for us, but we have to do a little bit of manipulation on our own. So that's why, yes, the calculator and Desmos is super helpful, but I always say at times you may have to do a bit of manipulation or math by hand. We want to try to limit that. But again, sometimes that's just going to be the easiest method for us. All right, number 17. Triangle FGH is similar to triangle JKL, where F corresponds to angle J and angles G and K are right angles. If sine of F is equal to 308 over 317, what is the value of sine of J? So normally I'm a big fan of just saying, hey, let's just go ahead and draw some triangles. So these two triangles are similar. So whatever, let's just say those two triangles are similar. We know that G and K, so we'll call this G, this K. I'm just going to make this side F. So that means this would be J, this would be H, this would be L. Because they said we know which ones correspond with each other. F and J correspond with each other, so I put them in the same spot. Again, these are right angles. So they are telling us that the sine of F, so we're talking about this angle, is 308, so the opposite side, because sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so 308 is this side, and then 317 is the hypotenuse. We're asking for the sine of j. Well, here's the nice part. Angles that are the same, so here j and f correspond, which means they're the same. The trig values of those, so the sine of f and the sine of j, are just going to be the same. It's just going to be b. If they said the cosine of f and the cosine of j, that would be the same. Or maybe it's the sine of h and the sine of l. As long as the angles are identical, and for triangles to be similar, it means that they are identical. The angles are, they're congruent. Then the trig value of one will equal the trig value of the corresponding. So sine of f here is the same as the sine of j. So this question you didn't have to draw it, but for a lot of sine and trig questions, drawing these figures can be extremely helpful. All right, number 18. The product of two positive integers is 546. If the first integer is 11 greater than the second integer, what is the smaller of the two integers? So let's just say the product of two positive integers. So we'll call them x and y. So product means we multiply. So is in math means equal. So 546. And instead of the first integer, so we'll call that x, is 11 greater than twice the second. So it's going to be twice the second, which I called y, and then 11 greater than that, so plus 11. And then we know what is the smaller of the two integers. So I just wrote two equations that had two unknowns, so I can now solve a system, which, again, I like using our calculator. So we can go to menu 3, 7, enter, and here we don't have to change. We only have two equations. We have x and y, so I'm just going to hit enter again. And then we just type it. When we have a letter next to a letter, remember you have to put times, so x times y equals 546. And in the second equation, x equals 2y plus 11. Then we hit enter. And here we get a couple different values of x and y. So they want to know what is the smaller. Again, they have to be integers. So what is the smaller? So here, this first point of x and y, so the two here, are not the two we're talking about because y is not an integer. So here, we're only going to think about when x is 39 and y is 14. Also, they're both negative. We needed positive integers. So which of these is the smaller of the two? 14. So the answer is B. All right. So number 19 says which point xy is the solution to the given system of inequalities in the xy plane. So if you're dealing with a system of inequalities, in my opinion, graphing in Desmos is probably going to be a very efficient way to do it. So we'll pull up Desmos, and we're just going to graph the two inequalities. So y is less than or equal to x plus 7. And then the next line we are going to do is y is less than or equal to 2x minus 1. And when I do these, I like to make them the same color. So if you click and hold, it'll allow you to choose the colors. And the reason why I like that is because it really makes it clear where they are both shaded, because it is the much darker. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to take those answers and we're just going to plot them. So I'm just going to do parentheses, negative 14, comma 0. And I'm just going to see, does that show up in the shaded region? So I'm just going to zoom out so I can see it. And it's like, no, that point. So I'm just going to delete that, and we're going to do a different way. So 0, negative 14. Oops. 0, negative 14. And I can see that that dot is not in the shaded region. So then we'll do 0, 0, positive 14. And that is not, so hopefully it's D. So it's 14, comma 0. And I feel like I did not graph these in. Oh, it's negative 2x. Oh my goodness. Good thing it's D because I typed it wrong. So make sure you type it correctly. So the answer is D. All right, number 20. What is the smallest solution to the given equation? So again, they are asking us for a solution. So if we're ever trying to find a solution, it usually means we're trying to solve for x. If I'm ever trying to solve for x, we can usually use our calculator. So let's pull up our calculator. So this is only one equation. So we're going to go to menu 3, 1. So we're going to solve. So we're going to do the square root. So square root of parentheses x. And I'm just typing it exactly how they have it written. Squared. We have to move outside the square root equals. Then another square root. 3x plus 34. We have to tell the calculator what to solve for. So I'm going to do comma x. I'm going to hit enter. And they want the smaller of the two solutions. So here, the smaller of the two would be negative 3. All right. Number 21. The regular price of a shirt at a store is $11.70. The sale price of the shirt is 80% less than the regular price, and the sale price is 30% greater than the store's cost for the shirt. What was the store's cost in dollars for the shirt? Okay. So we know the regular price is $11.70. So the sale price of the shirt, so I'm going to call that S, of the shirt is 80% less than the regular price. Actually, I'm going to call that X. So I'm going to put X right there because now I know. So X is sale price. So X equals 80% less than the regular price. Remember, if they ever say percent change, instantly know you're going to have to do the parentheses. So it's going to be 1. So it's less. So we're going to do minus 80%. Then the regular price. Well, we know the regular price. So times the regular price, which is $11.70. Okay. And then it says, and the sale price, so again, X, is 30% greater. So another percent change, but this time it's greater. So because it's greater, we're going to do 1 plus 30 over 100. Then the store's cost. So I'll just call the cost Y because I don't know what the cost is. So we're calling the cost Y. So then we know what is the store's cost. Well, we just made a system. So to solve the system, we can pull up the calculator. So menu 37, excuse me, enter here. And this is why I used X and Y because now I don't have to change the variables. But I would recommend labeling them. So writing things down. So I have X equals parentheses 1 minus control divide 80 over 100 times, and people always ask, should I put the time sign? If you ever aren't sure, just put it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it. So 11.7. And then we'll go down to the other one. X equals parentheses 1 plus control divide 30 over 100. Close parentheses times Y. Again, I actually didn't have to put the time sign here, but I'm doing it anyway, just in case. And here they want the cost, so they want Y. So now we found Y is 1.8. If they wanted the sale price, we have it there as well. All right. So 22. A sample of oak has a density of 807 kilograms per cubic meter. The sample is in the shape of a cube, where each edge has a length of 0.9 meters. To the nearest whole number, what is the mass in kilograms of the sample? So remember that density is equal to mass divided by or over volume. So mass over volume. So here we know the density. They said it's 807. And they said kilogram per cubic meter, which actually, another way to say it is meters cubed. The sample in the shape of is in the shape of a cube, which has an edge length of 0.9 meters. So because of them telling us that, we can find the volume of the cube. The volume of a cube, fit it in over here, volume of a cube is equal to the edge, or a lot of times we say side, but with cubes, we should call them edges. Side cubed, or edge cubed. So, for this question, we know the edge has a length of 0.9 meters. So because of that, the volume would just be 0.9 meters cubed. And then we don't know the mass and which is what they're asking for. So that's going to equal X kilograms. And I'm writing units just so you can kind of see. The left hand and right hand side units are all going to be the same. So I just made an equation that I can just solve. We'll make it 1 meter cubed on the left side just so you can see it's over 1. I can now solve for X. So again, I can pull up my calculator. I'm going to do menu 3-1. And I'm not going to, so we'll do control divide. I'll even put 807 over 1. I actually wouldn't do this, but just so you can kind of see, I'm just typing in how it is, other than I'm not putting the units. So then it's control divide again, X over 0.9, and I'm just not going to put the M cubed because that's just meters, comma, X. And they said to the nearest whole number, so we got 588.303, so we'll just say 588. Okay. 23. For x is greater than 0, the function f is defined as follows. Which of the following could describe this function? So we'll actually write this equation out, and we'll be able to kind of hopefully see more so what kind of equation it is. And then I will say a generalization as well, which is maybe not 100%. That's why I'm saying a generalization, but will probably work out. So f of x equals, so that just literally means f of x equals 201% of x. So if you ever see percent of, that means times. So I'm going to say 201 over 100 times x. Well, that's just a line. That's just y equals mx, and then plus b, it's just the b is 0. And since m is not negative, it's 201 over 100, so that's not a negative number. It's going to be increasing, so increasing linearly. So here's my generalization. If you see them talk about a percent change, so increasing by percentage, and especially really they should say increasing by percentage each year or each day or over the previous value, that's when it's exponential. The increasing, decreasing is going to be pretty obvious. If it's increasing, they'll probably say increasing. If it's decreasing, they'll probably say decreasing. But just because you see a percentage does not mean it has to be exponential. But if it's percent change, it most likely is. If you don't see them say percent change, then it's probably linear. Again, that's me simplifying it and making a generalization. But I think if you kind of follow that rule, it will usually work in your favor. All right. So 24. Let's zoom out so we can see the whole question. So it says the rational function f is defined by an equation in the form f of x equals a over x plus b, where a and b are constants. The partial graph of y equals f of x is shown. If g of x is equal to f of x plus 4, which equation could define function g? So we're going to talk about this as understanding what this means, f of x plus 4, g equals f of x plus 4. What that means is that g of x is just going to be the graph of f of x, but then shifted left 4. Because since it's in the parentheses with the x, it's happening in the horizontal direction or in the x direction, and the shift is in the opposite sign of the is in the opposite direction of the sign in the parentheses. So we know up here, this is the graph of f of x up here. They told us this. The rational function f is defined by the equation, and the partial graph of y equals f of x is shown. So I'm just going to take all of these answers, and I'm just going to graph all of them until it looks like the graph we have here, but shifted to the left, 4. So I could even go in here and I can say, okay, I can see that this point is at, well, look at this point. So this point here is at -5, -6. So if I shift it to the left 4, it should move to -9, -6. So I can even just see if my graph does that. I could also just even see if my graph looks like that. And what I can even do is I can change, let's pull up Desmos. I can even change my window in Desmos. So I can go into Desmos here and I say, hey, I want my x-axis to go from -10 to 0 because that's what the graph is doing. Oops, pulled up. I hit the wrong thing. To 0. And then it's by steps of 1. And then my y-axis goes from, what is it going from? It's going from -10 to 0 as well. So 0. And it is also by a step of 1. So I now made my graph. It's actually the same window. It doesn't look exactly the same. Again, your Desmos will look a little different than what I have here, but this is what you can do in on the test. And now I'm just going to graph all the answers. So I'm going to say g of x is equal to 6 over x. And I can see here that's not the graph. In fact, it looks like it's been shifted to the right, if anything. So then I'll try choice B, which is x plus 4 on the bottom. Well, if we look, that looks like it's actually the graph that they gave us. And I can even see here it's passing through this point right here, -5, -6. That's the point that I put the dot on. So it's not that, so let's try choice C. So instead, let's put +8. And that makes sense. That looks like it's maybe shifted to the left. And if I look here, it is at, if I can get on it, -9, -6. So it's exactly where we said that it should. So the answer is C. So again, I turned this into guessing and checking because I knew what kind of shift should happen. So I just graphed it and just saw which of these was that shift. This works really well if you ever know the graph and you know what your graph is supposed to look like. So even if they did a question where they wanted to just know what is the equation of f of x, you can now just try to match the graph they gave you with the answer. Here I knew that the graph should be shifted to the left, so I kind of kept on doing it till it was. All the other graphs, all the other functions here are going to be the graph shifted, but not shifted to the left for. Or not just shifted to the left for. Okay. So, looking at number 25 now. It says, which expression is equivalent to y plus 12 over x minus 8 plus y times x minus 8 all over x squared y minus 8xy. So this question is a very tedious question, but this is a great example of the benefit of the way I'm going to show you, because this question, without this method, I just think is not necessarily the easiest for many people. So if they ever say which expression is equivalent, we are going to turn this problem into a guess and check question. So usually there will be letters that we are unfamiliar, that we do not know the values of. Here, that's x and y. Sometimes it's only one letter. Sometimes it's 3, maybe 4. But here it's only 2. What we're going to do is we're going to pick numbers for our letters. What I usually recommend is just start with 3. So we'll just make x3. And then for every new letter that we don't know, just count up. Technically, you could usually just pick any letters or any numbers for these letters. I would stay away from 0 and 1. Or if they give you a stipulation. So if they said x has to be greater than 7, well, we can't pick 3. Again, I just say 3 and 4 just because then you don't even have to think like which number should I pick. But you could pick something completely random. You could say 22 and 29. It really doesn't matter what numbers you pick for these letters. I just like 1-digit numbers because they're just easier to type in, because again, we're going to type this into the calculator and we're just going to guess and check. So what we're going to do is, in the given expression, we're just going to go to our calculator and we are going to type it in exactly how it is, except we're going to put the numbers instead of letters. So I'm going to be like, okay, I'm doing a fraction and it's y plus 12. Well, I made y 4, so I'm going to do 4 plus 12. And the bottom is x, which I made 3. So 3 minus 8. And then plus, control divide because it's another fraction. So then it's y times x minus 8. So y I made 4 times parentheses x, which I made 3, minus 8. Close parentheses. We'll go to the bottom. So 3 squared times 4 minus 8 times 3 times 4. I believe I have that all correct. Just making sure. So I enter. So we got negative 43 over 15. So everything that I have written down, the x equals 3, y equals 4, negative 43 over 15, I would recommend writing down. So that way I don't have to remember in my head, like, hey, what numbers did I pick? What did I get? All that. It's there. I'm just going to check it with that stuff. So now I'm just going to go through each answer, and I'm just going to plug in and guess and check. Now, if you feel like one answer might be better than the others, you could change the order. You don't have to go A, B, C, D. So if you're like, oh, I think B is the correct answer, okay, then you can try answer choice B first. The order to me does not matter unless you have an idea of what you think it is supposed to be. So I personally would just say go in order if I were to ever actually do this. Again, it's going to be tedious. That's what's kind of annoying with this method is with this way, like you're gonna probably go a little bit slower. And this is actually probably one of the longest ones that you're gonna have to type in. So again, I'm just typing in choice A, but instead of putting X and Y, I'm putting the 3 and 4 respectively for each thing. So Y times 3 squared times 4 plus 64 times 3 times 4. So I got 1/15, so the answer's not A. So I go to B. B, unfortunately, has enough things that are different. If the answers are very similar, you can just kind of copy the answers or copy what you've typed in and just change what needs to be changed. But here, I just feel like there's enough difference that I'm just going to completely retype it. Plus 9 times 4. And to be honest, with the actual calculator, I'm doing this on a computer. I actually feel like you can type things in more quickly. I'm clicking everything on my computer. So hopefully you are more comfortable just typing into your calculator. So minus 8 times xy, so times 3 times 4, plus x, so plus 3 minus 8. So the answer's not B. So we're hoping it's one of the earlier ones if we're just going in order, because then that's where you can get lucky and save a little bit of time. So again, I'm admitting this way is tedious, but this method will work every single time when these questions say which expression is equivalent. So 3 times 4 minus 8y, so minus 8 times 4. And then it's 3 squared times 4 minus 8 times 3 times 4. And if you notice, we got the same number here for answer choice C. So we're done. We don't have to even type in D. If you really wanted to, you could. Again, for time's sake, I personally would. And this is about the hardest this question gets. Most of the time, they're going to be a little bit simpler. Again, you're usually just going to be like combining like terms. So again, if you feel like you want to do that by hand, go for it. My thought is just this method will work every time when they say which expression is equivalent to. It's just pay attention to what numbers maybe they allow. So again, if they're putting a stipulation, just pick numbers that follow that stipulation. All right, number 26. The table shows the result of a poll. A total of 803 voters selected at random were asked which candidate they would vote for in the upcoming election. According to the poll, if 424 people vote in the election, by how many votes? I'm underlining that because so many people misread that. By how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win? So they're not asking how many votes would Angel Cruz get. They're asking by how many votes would she be expected, or he or she be expected to win. So what we can do is we can find out how many votes Angel Cruz would win, and then find out how many votes Terry Smith could win, and then just find the difference in those two amounts. So we know that Angel Cruz received 483 votes out of the total 803 asked voters who were randomly selected. So that ratio of Angel Cruz to total votes should equal the ratio of actual Angel Cruz to actual total number of votes. So we know that there were a total of 6,424 people that voted. So Angel Cruz, we'll just say won X votes. So I can now bring up my calculator because I have an equation. So menu 3-1, control divide, 43 over 803 equals control divide x over 6424 comma x. And we get Angel Cruz won 3,864. So the mistake is people think that the answer is C. However, the question was not how many votes did Angel Cruz win. It was by how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win by. So X is the number of Angel Cruz. So what we could do is to figure out Terry, we know that the number of votes casted for Angel, so everybody else must have voted for Terry. So we just do the 6,424 minus 3,864, and this would give us what Terry's, I'll put T for Terry. So again, I'm just using my calculator, and I'm just going to do regular math. I'm not doing any solve function. I'm just subtracting two numbers minus this 3,864. So Terry won 2,506, so I could now do 3,864 minus 2,560. I think I said in 6. And so again, just doing regular calculator stuff. 3,864 minus 2,560. So 1,304. So the answer is B. So the question was, how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win by, or by how many votes? Not how many votes would Angel Cruz win. Okay. So number 27. Number 27, I feel like there are two extremely good ways to do it. I'm going to go ahead and show both. Just because I feel like some people may prefer one over the other. I know with many of you, I have not really talked a lot about graphing in our calculator, but that's going to be one of the ways we can do this. And again, you can now watch this over and over again to try to really retain how to do it. Or you can do it this other way. So the first way I'm going to show you how to do it, both ways are using the calculator. It's just different things. The first way I'm going to show you how to do it is you need to know the equation of a circle. So the generic equation of a circle, or the center form is what I usually call it, is this. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So this is telling us two things about the circle that's really helpful for us in terms of the graph. It's telling us where the center is. So the center would be at the point h comma k. And notice how it's in parentheses in the original equation up here. Both of these are inside parentheses. So the h and k are actually flipped signs when inside the parentheses. And then our r is the radius. So for this equation, this r is r squared. So and if we write it in this form, it's the radius squared. But in the question, they said the graph of x squared plus y squared plus y is equal to 199 over 2, and the xy plane is a circle. What is the length of the circle's radius? So since they're asking for the radius, it'd be nice to have it written in this center form that I just showed you. The equation they gave us is not in center form. I believe we call that standard form. I feel like I've heard people call the center form standard form as well. I call it standard form. But again, that's just names. Who cares? So I'm going to show you how to do it in the calculator, because in the calculator, you can change it from the equation they gave us into the equation that I just wrote, which is helpful because if we want to know the center, or if we want to know the radius, the way that I have just written this sample equation, or generic equation, formula, whatever, you can now see the radius or the center. So we're going to pull up our calculator. So our calculator has the function of completing the square in it. So we're going to go to menu 3, 5. So it says complete the square. And what I always recommend is do control divide when doing this. So do control divide. And what we're going to do is in the numerator, we are going to type in the entire equation that they gave us. So x squared plus x plus y squared plus y equals, so even the equal sign, all this, control divide, 199 over 2. So I wrote the entire equation in the calculator. And then in the denominator, you're going to put whatever numbers in front of x squared. So for this problem, it's just a 1. Sometimes they don't have a 1. Sometimes they have a 2 or a 4 or a letter. Maybe they have p in front of it. So you just put whatever is in front of x squared in the denominator. And then you're going to move outside of the fraction, but still inside the parentheses, because we have to tell the calculator what letters to do completing the square for. And with circles, you're going to do it with x and y, so you have to put comma x, comma y. And we're going to hit enter. And if you notice, they gave us the equation as x plus 1/2 squared plus y plus 1/2 squared equals 100. So I can now say that the center for this circle is at negative 1/2 comma negative 1/2. So if there was a question to ask for the center, I could answer that. And that the r squared, so r squared is equal to 100. So I can now solve for that. Menu 3, 1, r squared equals 100 comma r. And of course we get negative 10 and 10, but a radius can't be a negative length. So we get 10. So there's our radius. So that is one way to do this question. I really like this method, just because I feel like we should probably know this equation here anyway, because there are enough questions that you kind of need to know that form to be able to comfortably do that in a time-efficient manner. But the other way to do this, you can get away with not knowing that equation. And I also like this method, and we are actually going to graph using the CAS calculator. This is where I don't usually do a lot of graphing with the CAS. Really, circles are the only questions that I would even personally consider graphing. So this type of question. So to get to the graph, you can hit this button above the tab button that actually looks like a little calculator, and it will pull up a graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to menu 3, 2. So we want it to be a relation. And so what we're going to do is we are going to type in our equation exactly how it's written, unless, of course, if you have a letter next to a letter, you have to put a time sign. So all those exceptions you have to remember. Plus y equals control divide 199 over 2. We're going to hit enter. It's going to graph it. You may need to change the window. So there's two ways. You could either go to menu, window zoom, so 4, and then you could either do zoom in, zoom out, or you could do zoom fit. I oftentimes lean towards just doing zoom fit. The only negative thing, it probably won't look like a circle anymore, but it shows you usually the whole circle. So just know it's a circle even though it doesn't look like it. So now to figure out either the radius or the center. To get to it's the same thing, it's just the last button we click. So we're gonna go to menu, analyze graph, which is 6, analyze conic, which is 9. And then if we want the center, we'll click center. But for this problem, they wanted the radius, so we'll select radius. And then you'll have to use your little your touchpad, and you have to click on the circle. And so I'm going to click it. And then if you notice, there's the 10 hovering under my the little finger. If I click again, it'll put it down. And so here I can now see that the radius is 10. If I would have done center, it would have done the same thing. I'll do center real quick. So menu, analyze graph, analyze conic, center. I'm going to click the center, and it puts the center. If you ever have a hard time seeing it, you can hit control and then click on the, actually, I don't know how to do it on this. Ooh. I actually don't know how to do it on the, there we go. And then hold it, and then you can move it around and then click again, it will put it down. So there's my center. So I hit control, and then I click the little middle button on the touchpad, and then I clicked on, while doing that, I clicked on the center of the circle and was able to move those numbers. So now I can see the center is at negative 1/2 comma negative 1/2. So again, I got the same equation, or the same center and radius as I did doing the other method, but now it just straight up tells you the center and the radius. So that's where this method is better. The reason why I teach both is because I don't do a lot with graphing with the CAS, so I just know a lot of you will not be as familiar with the CAS calculator's graphing. So either way will work. All right, so I'm going to do the second module in a different video, and then maybe you'll see more videos in the future. Yeah, so go back, rewatch some things. I know there are a couple little things where I just typed something weird in the calculator where I graphed incorrectly, but of course we all do that. Just hopefully we can manage those mistakes, or hopefully recognize them. All right, I'll see you in module 2.